I have 10 minutes for my talk, and my name is Ivan, and I was here about 6 months ago, and I'm happy to be here again. And this talk is going to be somewhat like introduction to introduction because of the time limit. And actually, I'm on a Ruby trip. I'm going to visit 8 countries and 4 Ruby conferences in 40 days. And if you are going to visit any of those, you might meet me there. So just saying. And if you haven't seen this picture before, please follow the link. There is a full schema with all the details. But here I'm going to give you a small explanation. Like, basically, this schema describes my path as a Ruby developer, and as I found out, it actually describes the path of almost any regular Rails developer. On the first stage at the bottom is where we fell in love with Rails, we are happy, and we think that it will last forever. But then we start getting problems. We switch to the next stage where we're looking for ways to solve these problems. Like, we try different approaches, we learn new things. But some people find the approaches, but some kind of lose their hope, and they switch to the third stage where they decide to leave Rails. They decide to start using new language or new platform, or they decide to switch to another paradigm, like event sourcing, like microservices, serverless. Like, they decide that it's enough, we have to deal with other kinds of problems. But I was lucky enough to meet a guy from the stage number 4 who actually tried different languages, learned a lot of different paradigms, and he brought this knowledge into Rails. And he developed the approach how to organize code in Rails. And I was lucky enough to learn from him, and I was so excited, so impressed, that a year ago, I gave a bunch of talks, and you can find them on YouTube, and watch a short introduction about this. Not actually short, it's 2 hours long. Introduction about this approach. And I started writing a book where I decided to describe this approach. But then I stuck because I realized that I am writing a book which says, here's how you can use it. And I realized that there is one part missing. The explanation why you should be using it like this. And this is what we are going to talk about. And this is a small example. Like, this is a hut, and almost anyone can build a hut. And therefore, we can call this person a builder. And this is a small house, and experienced builder can, if he built a number of huts and a number of houses, small houses, then he can build another small house. And like, this is an experienced guy. But when it comes to building a really big house, the skills of 2 builders and even more builders are not enough anymore. And that's the problem. And why is that? It is because now we have to deal with a lot of different aspects, like how we provide electricity, how we provide plumbing, gas, ventilation, heating, how we deliver people to their apartments, and so on and so on and so on. Like, a lot of aspects, and we have to somehow merge them and figure out the way how to combine them so they don't conflict. And I think in real life, there is a person or maybe a team who is familiar with all of those aspects. They develop a lot of documentation, a lot of schemas, and finally some chief architect makes final decision about how we should build this building in this area. But in our story, it looks like this. The same person who is asked to develop a hut, then is asked to develop a small house, and then he is expected to turn small house into a huge house. And sometimes business expects us to build a skyscraper. And as a result, we are getting something like this. Like, the person who built the hut uses the same principles to build a bigger house, and then uses the same principles to build a bigger house. And it's not surprising that the people who end up supporting this, they in a lot of pain. So this is where it comes from. And so what's missing? I think the answer is now obvious. I think that we are missing architect skills. And another question, what are those things, what are those aspects we should be aware of in terms of our regular day-to-day work with Rails? Is it something like this? Is it like object-oriented programming, design patterns, functional programming, DDD? Well, yes, but there are two problems. First problem, when you learn about one of those concepts, you tend to fall in love with it, and you start pushing it to extremes, and you get no good from it. You really get different problems, but a lot of problems as well. And also, there's much more to it. Those are not the only concepts you should learn. Here's a big list for you. I'll give you a link so you can read it later in detail. So, a lot of different stuff you should be aware, and you should learn how to make them not conflicting one with each other. I've been thinking a lot about how to explain these concepts to people who use Rails, how to teach people, and I derived a number of principles from those concepts, and this is actually what you can take from this talk. These are some of those principles. You can follow the link, you will get I think there are now 11 principles. We're not going deep into them right now because we don't have time. But you can use this list of principles as a checklist. You can ask yourself whether the way you use Rails complies to those principles. If it is, then you're good. Then it means when your application grows, when your code base grows, you'll be okay. If it's not, then you're gonna have problems. Okay. Here are some sources you can use. Those are really good books and really complicated ones. And the challenge is that they contain not a single mention of Ruby or Rails. Those are completely theoretical, we can say it. And this is actually what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to learn all those ideas and to merge them with Rails and turn them into a single, you can say, methodology or something like this, and describe it in a book or something like this. If you're interested to learn more, you can reach me somehow, and this is just an idea. I took it from Andrei. Because 10-minute slots is not enough to tell anything. I'm thinking I will actually organize a webinar where you can learn more, and I'm going to explain few techniques from this list and explain few, at least some of the principles. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.